And we may even do a joint venture, a joint thing together, because the idea is to provide information to people so they can make the most informed decisions. So then, leading us to Avant Garde, property management company, if Bob and Anthony would come up here. And I started working with Anthony's dad. So I started working with Anthony's dad, Larry, in 1998 under P-Net Realty.
Yep.
And
he still comes in every single day, too.
Sometimes I wish not.
when I was there a month ago, I was talking to Larry about it. Remember being on Turney, next to 7th Street, and this property on the north side of Turney was, how are we going to get this thing sold and repositioned? And I mean, the stories that we could sit and talk about how we solved problems together go back a long ways. So when I have a buyer looking to buy a property, I will go to Anthony and Bob and say, guys, we've got a buyer looking at a property. It's got to have some repositioning done. What do you think? What do you think it's going to cost to reposition the property? What do you think we can get for rents? These guys know rents across the entire valley. And Bob's my go-to guy. He'll get in the car, we'll ride around, and we'll talk with a potential buyer. And he's helped put deals together because they're that knowledgeable. So to start with, Anthony, why don't you talk about how you got into this and followed your dad's steps, and give us a little background for 4 or 5 minutes here.
Yeah. So, I've been in this business since I was 13. It's pretty much my education. And we'll keep it short. In 2009, I decided to leave my father's company, P-Net Realty. And it was about that time Bob came in, and we'll hand that off in a second. Was partners in a tax credit property management firm, which is quite different, a lot of regulation. Statewide, absolutely loved it. But anytime I feel if you're 50-50 partners, something always ends up just kind of locking up. So I sold that company to her, went back to work with my father in 2013, became president of P-Net Realty, put that company to bed. I just didn't like the name. And in July of 13, I opened up Avant Garde to kind of take over. And that's kind of when me and Bob kind of hooked up. Bob?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for being here tonight. And thank you to all of our sponsors, too, Ken and Marty and Carson. Thank you for coming out and supporting us. We really do appreciate that. And everybody in the audience, again, thank you very much. We're very optimistic about what our future looks like. We had a great run, from 2010 to 2019, 2020. And I believe that it's going to come back. I've not only worked for Avant Garde, but I started out as an owner. I purchased in 2009 a little 24-unit building downtown, and I met Larry DEAUGUSTINE, who was managing it, and he convinced me to come to work for him. So I got into the business at the same time. But I've turned 6 buildings on my own in that time, repositioned them like Jim says. We'll find a building, we'll analyze it, we'll feel what the rents could be, what it would take to achieve those rents, and if the underwriting works. We've done several deals together with that. So.
A little modest, you also have a construction background, is what helped build our repositioning services. Bob has a little better, I go look at a property, and I look at it, and it just looks like what it is. When Bob looks at it, he's got a little more vision. He can see a little more of the improvement side, which helps drive that side of the repositioning.
Absolutely.
So Bob, how did you find those good properties that made you a lot of money?
Well, I retired in 1996 from my father, and I had a construction company here in Phoenix building Circle K gas stations. He got sick. I wanted to retire. I moved to Mexico. I met my wife down there. I have a wonderful home in Mazatlan, so we're very happy. My father passed away, and my mom needed help, so I wanted to come back to Phoenix. And I went on LoopNet, and I wanted to buy a multifamily building. And I saw Jim Caston and Caston Long's name pop up over and over again in the size that I was looking for and the price range I was looking for. So I reached out to Jim. I said, I'm going to fly on up. Can you get me somebody to drive me around town? And he got me one of his representatives, Scott Trevey. We looked at a few buildings, and I was successful with purchasing one in 2009. $35,000 a door.
What'd you sell it for?
I sold it for $68,000 a door 4 years later. I was hooked.
I
thought I made $1 million. And then I bought a 54-unit building, and I did the same thing, and on and on and on.
So one of the things that I've learned and hear from other people that are clients of Bob and Anthony is they treat their clients like their family and they treat the properties like they're their own. So we heard Zach, who's an amazing guy. The numbers like just breathes out of him. But he's managing his own properties. How does your management style differ for your managing other people's properties? How does that style different?
Well, that's a great question, Jim. You know, Zach, I have a lot of respect for Zach. We met back in the 2019 days, and I watched him grow. And I'll tell you, if I ever had to brag about somebody in this town or got the opportunity to do that, Zach is at the top of the list. He is definitely a gentleman of integrity and a great guy. He has a style of syndication. He's built his business up to 200 plus employees. And that's a platform that's more of like a professional business platform. Anthony and I and Larry, we're old-fashioned. We're down in the trenches every day. Larry and I, we're out on properties every day. We walk the properties. We have the vision in our mind of each one of the properties and what the residents see is like. So when I reach out and have conference calls with my owners weekly, I'm speaking from my vision. I'm speaking from the heart. And one value that I have that I bring to Avant Garde is as being an owner, when I walk around and manage your property, I'm managing it with the eyes of an owner. What I would do to make that property to its best ability, and then I'll discuss it with you, and we'll come up with a solution, or a concept.
And kind of going back to Zach, he started off with, he got in the industry because he wanted passive income. He didn't want to work. I would imagine you guys don't want to work. That's why you hire me, because you sit back, I send you the check once a month, everything's good, right? If you don't get a check, my phone will ring. I'll know, right? So I think the fundamental difference, the big difference is you don't have to get involved. You don't get that call at midnight. I do, and that's I have a passion. I grew up doing this, so we love what we do. Yeah. So the energy is directed to the right person at that point.
So if somebody didn't get a check, and they wanted to get a hold of you, they would call the office. And who was going to answer the phone? Where is she? Where's Christina?
She's there. She's out
Santa,
there. And
My
Melina.
colleague Christina.
Right there. Those
do
two
that.
women right there.
That's who really runs the office,
Melina,
right?
Christina. Yeah, we have a few Avant Garde representatives in here tonight. Yeah, no, I don't even have a telephone on my desk. I have a telephone in my pocket. And if you are connected with me, you have my phone number in my pocket. You call me at all. Owners, I talk to them on Saturdays. I talk to them in the evenings. If they're respectful of my time, I appreciate that. But when they really do need me, I'm there. I'm not a 9-to-5 guy. I like Anthony says, we're passionate about this. This is what we love to do.
These guys are fun to work with. So you've been in management forever. Tell us a little bit about how management style was back then, today, and where it's going, and what are your strategies to protect your owners?
I'll keep it as brief as I can. All right, so the way that I look at it is we opened in July of 13. By 2014, Phoenix took off, man. It was like pedal to the metal. And so we got to grow with it, and it was a fun ride. But back then, from 14 to, I'd say, early 22, it was all about, let's reposition this building, get it for the right price, reposition it, let's maximize that market rent in that sub-market, and create some income, right? Now, today, that has changed. It's a little harder to do those deals. As you said, the deal flow just isn't there. So it does switch more to a cost. Now you're looking, the change today is we're looking at cost. Insurance cost goes up at least 30% right now. Your finance rates went up, so the loan's harder to pay. With COVID, material is still, especially air conditioning material and chiller systems, very hard to get parts still. Labor's still inflated. So it's really important to go line by line on your income statement and really look at where can I cut costs. That's what we do for our clients is try to find the little tidbits that we can lower the costs and up the NOI. And my opinion, coming forward, to take it to tomorrow, it's going to be a hybrid of both. I don't think we're going to see, he said 12.5. My clients, if they're paying off the shelf prices, it's $20K to do what he does for $12.5, right? So what we're looking at now is, okay, let's buy the asset, let's get it for the right price, but let's maybe put $10 to $12K in as a remodel. In-suite washer and dryer in this market, you can't live without. It's becoming a must at this point. So, and sometimes that frees up another unit if done right, because now you can turn that laundry room into something. So I think today is more driven by cost and trying to do cost savings. Don't put as much maybe into the rehab as you used to yesterday. Rents are on a decline. We put out 20,000 units just this year. We were 4th in the nation with delivery on Class A. And unfortunately, usually it was downtown, but this time it was in the outlying areas like Avondale. So what that does is if I'm living in Central Phoenix and I'm paying $1,600 a month, I can go live in a Class A in Avondale for the same price. So that's what caused a lot of the vacancy uptick, and that's what's causing some of the negative down pressure on the rent. But absorption, we anticipate will about halfway through 25. They're scheduled about 15,000 next year doors in Class A, but we're anticipating around midway through 25, the absorption will kind of take its place. The market should start to correct, and we hope to see the rents start going back up to where they were before the decline. I don't think concessions are going to go away, though. I think that's going to stick around a little longer, but we'll see.
So one of the things that I think these guys will probably know, and I don't know the answer to my question here, is we're seeing places like TSMC way up in north on 303. We've seen Metro Center, they're going to put $1 billion into it. Chandler is on fire with chip building. Are there areas that you would, if somebody came to you and said, I want to buy a 10 or 20 or 50 unit property, where you would suggest, go to this area, go to this submarket because the population is growing and you're seeing a vacancy decrease and rents? Are there areas in town that you can recommend or talk about?
Mesa. I mean, out of all this going on, I don't care what I've read. I've watched it personally. Mesa's market continues to increase. It's not even flat. Phoenix flat and then went down. Mesa still, it flattened for a minute, but it's still going up. The concessions aren't as high. So I would say Mesa, Gilbert and Chandler are always hot spots. A little more expensive.
What's driving Mesa?
Well, good question. Yeah, I heard Intel because they're competing with TMC, the plant up north with what is it, TMC or the Taiwan plant? Yeah, and Intel's got Chandler, and so there's a constant push there. Plus, the job market in Phoenix is overall going up. We're still doing really well with employment, but I think that they're just taking advantage of that.
Do you see problems, with interest rates are up, cost of living is up, inflation is up, the price of gas is up, the tenants are not, there's more and more pressure on them. They might be at a blue-collar job that's not getting much increase in money. How do you keep the tenants? What are you doing? Are there government programs coming out to help tenants? Give me an idea of what's going on with that.
Not as much as there should be, unfortunately. There's still certain organizations and resources list that we provide our tenants when they're in trouble.
What kind of resources?
Well, if you go to the Arizona Department of Housing, or I think it's housingaz.com, and they have a section there where they can get a whole packet of all the different resources, whether it be for utilities or rent. A New Leaf comes to mind. They're in Mesa. They do a lot of work with us. There's a lot of good subsidy programs like Home Inc., CBI. Okay. CBI, if you're a veteran and you need help, they'll step in and help you as well. And your normals like St. Vincent de Paul.
So if you've got some tenants that are going, Jesus, Anthony, I'd like to pay my bill, but I don't have any money, you are there to help them work with those agencies.
You have to. Ever since COVID, if you don't, then you're going to suffer in the occupancy side. So we make it a point. We don't work with every resident necessarily, but we always provide them resources so they can help themselves.
Okay. So we're going to wind down here in a second, but you were very instrumental. In fact, when you first started working with Zach, you bought the Silver Oaks property, 35, 40 units, whatever it was, and you repositioned units there. Are you still repositioning units to help increase rents and increase value? Are you still doing that? And is that a favorable thing still to do?
I think it is still happening. Like I said, I'm in charge of that program. It's not happening for new purchases right now because there's very minimal new purchases going on. But what I am working with is some of our existing owners that have owned property, older properties for a long time, and they didn't participate in the repositioning movement of the past, but now they're seeing the opportunity. Maybe they've just refinanced and they're getting a little extra CapEx money in the refinance. I've got a 43-unit building. We're just getting the CapEx money to $2 million to spend next year to reposition this building. Same owner. They've owned it since 1980. So that's happening a little bit right now, for sure.
At the end of the day, it's just numbers, right? There's always a good time to buy and a good time to sell. Markets go up and down. But if this is what you do, it's just a numbers game. You just got to find, and that's where we come in. If numbers aren't for you, I do pro forma budgets. Bob will do, he'll go out, look at the building and give you a budget to remodel it. We'll tell you where we can drive the rents. We can show you how it adds to your bottom, the value of the building at the end of the day. We have all the same spreadsheets, Zach, because Zach sends me what he's got. He's very accessible and very easy to work with. So we can help you underwrite a building, but at the end of the day, it's just numbers, right? You get the right property for the right price, that's going to allow you to do more. And even with interest rates going up, there's still ways that we can find to cost cut and make it work.
So we've got some property owners out here. Do you have any questions for these guys? This is free, easy, tell me how to help with a tenant.
My question is for when you guys are thinking about 2025 operationally, are you expecting occupancy to bottom next year? Occupancy has been declining and throughout 2024, and just trying to figure out where that inflection point is. Same question with rent growth, negative rent growth. Are you expecting positive movement by the end of 2025 in terms of asking rent growth, or expectations on the operations side?
From the research I've done, and my job these days is to study the markets and know where it's, try to guess where it's going. I would say that by the end of the second quarter of 25, we should start seeing a little more movement with rents going back to where they were. That's what the hope is. We think the concessions may stick around to create that extra incentive to allow the rents to move. Because the typical way this goes down is the first sign of a problem is the concessions. And then after concessions have been saturated for a while and there's not enough movement, then they go to declining rents. Right? So it reverses the same way. So the hope would be, and then as far as occupancy, right now, I think we're at 86% in Phoenix, and that was down from last quarter, it was 88%. So Phoenix, so we had some really good years in 21, 22, we brought in over 80,000 in population, right? But on an average, year over year, we're bringing in about 50,000 people. And with all this employment still stable and our employment rates, our employment growth is going up and not down, the only thing going down is the rents and vacancy going up. When all that absorption catches up and the employment is still solid, that'll allow the rents to start moving back forward.
So you have to appreciate, here's a guy from CoStar asking the guys in the trenches to make projections. So thank you for that.
So you say average rent's 86% in the city right now?
Occupancy, yeah.
Occupancy?
Yeah, but we're still down. Let me actually, because there's another really important stat that I just learned. The average rent, just as an average, is listed at about $13.49 right now in Phoenix. The national, though, is $15.50. So that tells you right there, we got room to grow.
Yeah.
Close it out.
All right. Well, thank you very much. On behalf of Avant Garde, we thank Jim Caston.
Thank you, Jim.
I've known Caldwell Banker, absolutely.
Martin, we've used him on many deals. We've done 200 units in like a half a day.
Ken Plitt, he's the best insurance guy in the town. There's just no doubt about it. So we appreciate everybody coming out here. Avant Garde is an open door. You got our contact information.
It doesn't cost money to ask questions. Call us anytime.
Anthony is the inside guy. I'm the outside guy. So we answer all the questions you come into our office for you.
And use your little cards that we have and fill out little things, ask questions, tell us what you'd like to have more done in the past. And Chris has got the box there. Put your cards in the box. Give us some insight.
Box will be at the table.
Okay.
All right.
Guys, thank you for coming.
Thank you again,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Appreciate
Thank
you very
you.
much.